What's up everyone, Justin here, and today I've got the comparison between the Samsung Galaxy S4 and the Google LG Nexus 4. The Samsung Galaxy S4 is an improvement to the very successful predecessor, the Samsung Galaxy S3, and the Google LG Nexus 4 has proven itself to be possibly one of the best smartphones out in the market, not only because of its budget price, but also the fact that it runs pure Android that a lot of people do prefer. Starting out with the display, the Samsung Galaxy S4 has a 4.99-inch display with a physical home button but capacitive touch back and many buttons, while the LG Nexus 4 has a 4.7-inch display but the buttons are all built into the screen. In terms of the thickness, the Samsung Galaxy S4 comes in at just 7.9mm thick, while the Google LG Nexus 4 comes in at 9.1mm thick. But when it comes to the weight, there isn't a huge difference, with the Samsung Galaxy S4 weighing in at 130 grams and the LG Nexus 4 weighing in at just 9 grams later at 139. The LG Nexus 4 has a nice glass back, and when you take a closer look at it, you will see the nice speckles in the design itself, while the Samsung Galaxy S4 has a polycarbonate removable battery cover, so that may be an advantage, but in terms of the build quality, the LG Nexus 4 definitely takes it. When it comes to the display, this is where I noticed a larger difference. The Samsung Galaxy S4 has a full HD 1920 by 1080 resolution Super AMOLED 5-inch display with a 441 ppi, while the LG Nexus 4 has a 4.7-inch 1280 by 768 resolution 318 ppi display. Although the eye cannot see any smaller pixel beyond the 300 ppi mark, the higher ppi just gives you a much better pop factor, and the colors on the Samsung Galaxy S4 just look much richer, although some may say they are oversaturated. When the display was put next to the LG Nexus 4, it really looked much brighter, and I actually had to check if my LG Nexus 4 was turned up to top brightness, but by itself the LG Nexus 4 really doesn't have a bad display, just that the Samsung Galaxy S4 display just looks much better. When it comes to the software, yes, both these devices do run Android 4.2.2 Jelly Bean, however the difference lies in terms of the actual experience. On the LG Nexus 4 you're getting a stock Android experience, while on the Samsung Galaxy S4 you're getting a skinned experience with lots of features that Samsung introduced to the S4 in particular. Some people may like it, but some people may not, so it really comes down to what type of experience you are looking for. First, we're going to take a look at the Samsung Galaxy S4 and its TouchWiz UI. A lot of people may find that the skin is a little bit heavy or over obstructive, so if you want a stock, clean Android experience, the Nexus is the option for you. But if you like all the TouchWiz features, such as the multi-window, while you're using an app, you can use another app as well on half of the screen, or if you want to use the smart pause function and the player mode, for example, there are so many things that TouchWiz has introduced, which may be why some people may find it over obstructive. And with the camera as well, there are so many more things you could do on the Samsung Galaxy S4. One of the biggest reasons why somebody would go with a Nexus phone instead of a skin phone is that the updates come out so much faster. As you know, Keyline Pi is set to be announced or introduced to us, and the Nexus would probably get it as soon as it comes out, since it is Google's phone and it is a stock Android experience, while you will have to wait quite a while as Samsung adapts the skin and everything to the new OS before you will get the update, and sometimes it may take months and months, and in some cases it may never come to the particular phone you own, so that may be a big advantage to the Nexus phone. When you look at the experience itself though, the Nexus phone gives you a really clean experience. You can see that some of the features or toggles are already on the home screen, and the basic features are really easy to access, and all your other features are just in the actual settings, so it's a much lighter experience, I'm going to call it. For those who may not want or need the Samsung TouchWiz UI features and want a less obstructive user experience, the LG Nexus 4 and its pure stock Android experience is really clean, like I mentioned, and it is definitely an amazing option for many. So now it's time to put the hardware of these two phones to the real test. The Samsung Galaxy S4 I've got here is the international 8-core version clocked in at 1.6 GHz, while the North American version has a Snapdragon 600 quad-core processor clocked in at 1.9 GHz, but the overall benchmark should be somewhat close, and both models do feature 1.82 GB of RAM, and the LG Nexus 4 has a Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 Pro processor clocked in at 1.5 GHz with 1.83 GB of RAM. It really doesn't matter when I hit the button. The final score is what's going to matter, and The Samsung Galaxy S4 came out on top with a score of 3,600 compared to the LG Nexus 4, with still a pretty respectable score of 2,114. But obviously you could see in all its power and its processing power, the Samsung Galaxy S4 came out on top over the LG Nexus 4. Of course, I'm going to run quite a few benchmarks just to see who's the clear winner in terms of the power of these two phones. So the next benchmark I'm going to be running is the Antutu benchmark, which is also a pretty popular benchmark as well. Of course, the time doesn't really matter of when these really finish. They will give you a final score, which is what we are going to be looking at. You can see they perform all these graphics things to test the processing power or graphics power of your phones. So the Samsung Galaxy S4 came out really high at 27,392, while the LG Nexus 4 came out at 16,102. You can tell from the CPU and GPU performance on the Samsung Galaxy S4, the processing power of the S4 definitely shines, while the LG Nexus 4 also still came out with a definitely respectable score, but it is almost about half of what the Samsung Galaxy S4 got in its final benchmark score. Another benchmark we will be running to test the CPU and GPU performance is Quadrant Standard. So this again doesn't matter which phone finishes first, but it will run it through its paces through all the hardware on the phone, such as the CPU, the GPU, etc. And you can see that the Samsung Galaxy S4 is out to a head start with pretty good frame rates throughout the benchmark. So now we're just going to wait for the LG Nexus 4 to finish off, and there you go. You see that the Samsung Galaxy S4 comes in at 13,181, while the LG Nexus 4 came out with a score of just about 4,727. So next up, we're going to go ahead and test out the Wi-Fi speeds on these devices. I do not have LTE hooked up to both these devices, but we're just testing these solely on Wi-Fi. I decided to test them one at a time just to get accurate results, and we got just about 15 down and 5 up or so. So that's probably about how much I got on my iPhone 5, just for comparison's sake. And let's just see what the LG Nexus 4 can get. So in terms of the ping, it is a little bit slower, but in the download speed, it is slightly faster than the Samsung Galaxy S4, and its upload speed is just about the same as well. Now let's go ahead and run a real-life benchmark test where we pretty much just load up a web page at the same time and see how they perform. So both devices are really fast, and the LG Nexus 4 came up just a little bit behind, but there really isn't much of a difference there. So both these devices are definitely great performers if you're going to be loading up web pages. In terms of the speed, both of them do a really good job. The saying, the best camera you have is the one you have with you, definitely holds true with both of these phones. This Samsung Galaxy S4 with one of its most predominant features, the camera, a 13 megapixel rear shooter, while the LG Nexus 4 with still a very respectable 8 megapixel shooter, and both these phones also have an LED flash behind as well for your low light shots. These phones are definitely going to get you really nice photos, whether you're going to be taking photos on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or just photos while you travel that you will be using for yourself. These phones will definitely get you some amazing quality. The LG Nexus 4 has a 1.3 megapixel front shooter, while the Samsung Galaxy S4 has a 2 megapixel front facing camera, and both these phones will definitely be really good for stuff like Skype calls as well. When it comes to the camera OS, the Samsung Galaxy S4 really thrives in this category. If you saw Samsung's event, they really want to emphasize all the things that the camera can do. You can see that there's all those features already built into the phone, and for all you photo enthusiasts out there, you will really like all the filters and functions built in, and some of you may want to customize stuff like the ISO, white balance, video size, stabilization, GPS, etc. It really gives you a good level of customization to get your photos the way you want them. There's also a dual shot mode where you could take photos or video with both the front and rear facing camera and vice versa, so that's a pretty good feature to have as well. When it comes to the LG Nexus 4, they really want to keep it simple. You still have all your camera features that you may need and all your settings, but they really want to just have a clean interface and make it easy for the user to have. Some of you may prefer this, but others may want the more sophisticated camera interface that is seen on the Samsung Galaxy S4, so it really just depends on what's right for you. There's also the photosphere as well as a panoramic mode as well on both these phones. When you take a look at the side-by-side comparisons of the camera, you can see that the Samsung Galaxy S4 shoots in a 16:9 aspect ratio, while the LG Nexus 4 shoots in a 4:3 aspect ratio. The color on both these cameras are really rich, and with the extra megapixel, for example, if you're cropping, the Samsung Galaxy S4 really retains its detail, but the colors in the LG Nexus 4 still look really great, and as you can tell, the Samsung Galaxy S4 camera is somewhat a little bit overexposed or saturated, and that may be an advantage or disadvantage to some. When it comes to video, both of these phones can shoot in full HD 1080p video, but you can tell right away that the colors on the Samsung Galaxy S4 are just a little bit more vibrant when you could see from the grass. The LG Nexus 4 is still a great performer in the camera, but it is evident that the Samsung Galaxy S4 is on top in this category. When it comes to the sensors and additional features, the Samsung Galaxy S4 definitely thrives in that category. It features a barometer, thermometer, RGB light sensor, proximity sensor, hydrometer, gyroscope, gesture sensor, and an accelerometer. A lot of these features or sensors can be utilized by software, which is really great to see Samsung include anyways. And one example could be S Health. It actually uses a lot of these features to sense the environment, etc. And you can also use a lot of the eye tracking features such as Smart Scroll and Smart Pause, which I feel works pretty well. However, most people probably won't use any of these features, but it's just good to see Samsung include. There's also the quick preview where you can hover your finger over the display. On the other hand, the LG Nexus 4 has an accelerometer and a proximity sensor, and for most people it'll be more than enough and they don't really need the additional features on the Samsung Galaxy S4, but it is always great to see that Samsung has included all those things that can be utilized by software. When it comes to the battery life, unfortunately, neither of these phones really thrives in this category. The Samsung Galaxy S4 does have a larger battery at 2,600 mAh as opposed to the LG Nexus 4's 2,100 mAh battery. However, what I noticed is that the Samsung Galaxy S4 is pretty much utilizing the extra battery to power both its 8-core processor as well as the full HD 1920 by 1080 resolution display. And the battery life of both of these phones was pretty much the same. You could probably squeak through at a whole day, but at times the battery will run out. However, one advantage to the Samsung Galaxy S4 is you can pretty much remove the plastic back and change up the battery if you really wanted to, while the LG Nexus 4 has a stronger build quality. However, you are unable to remove the battery, so there is a little bit of a trade-off there. Now on to the final verdict between the Samsung Galaxy S4 and the LG Nexus 4. As you may have seen from all the tests in this video, the Samsung Galaxy S4 for the most part did come on top over the LG Nexus 4, but really what it comes down to is both your budget as well as your experience you're seeking. The Samsung Galaxy S4 has a lot of functionalities built into it, such as all its sensors, as well as the TouchWiz UI, which has introduced many new features. However, it does come at a more expensive price, especially line up with all the premium smartphones. On the other hand, the LG Nexus phone is probably one of the best values you're going to get out in the market for all its power as well as its clean Android experience that a lot of people are looking for. So to conclude, in terms of the pure power and performance of a phone, the winner is the Samsung Galaxy S4. However, if you were to go with the LG Nexus 4, I will assure you that you will not be disappointed. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button down below to see some more, and stay tuned for some future comparisons between some other phones as well, and I'll see you all in my next video.